Arthur. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we have lined up for you tonight. Some active military members in Quebec are accused of attempting to set up their own militia. Plus, new polling shows the federal NDP have a long road ahead to rebuild the party. And regular folk lend a helping hand to victims of last week's tragic flooding in Texas. Thanks for joining us. 4 men are facing terrorism charges after allegedly plotting to forcibly take over land in the Quebec City area. RCMP say that includes active members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Mounties allege 3 suspects in their 20s were planning to create an anti-government militia, taking part in military-style training to facilitate terrorist activity. The RCMP says one of the accused allegedly ran an Instagram account with the aim of recruiting new members to this group. A 4th suspect has been charged with possessing firearms, prohibited devices, and explosives, among other offenses. Police searches conducted in January of last year in Quebec City led to the seizure of 16 explosive devices, about 11,000 rounds of ammunition, and other weapons. The case is being described as ideologically motivated violent extremism. RCMP say 2 pilots are dead after 2 small single-engine planes crashed this morning in southern Manitoba.
So at 8:45 a.m. this morning, Steinbach RCMP were notified of a 2-plane mid-air collision in the rural municipality of Hanover. RCMP, Fire Department, Emergency Medical Services attended and located the wreckage of 2 small single-engine aircrafts south of Steinbach. The 2 pilots were pronounced deceased on scene. There were no passengers aboard.
Officials with the Transportation Safety Board are investigating. A new poll suggests the percentage of Canadians who view the United States as a top threat has tripled since 2019. The survey by the Pew Research Center shows that 59% of Canadians see the U.S. as the top threat. But interestingly, 55% of Canadians polled also see the Americans as our top ally. This comes as U.S. President Donald Trump pursues his global trade war and has been talking about annexation. The Pew poll was done in 24 countries. In 12 of those 24 nations, the U.S. was viewed as the top ally. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced more tariffs. He is slapping a 50% tariff on all copper imports and a whopping 200% tariff on all pharmaceutical imports. No timelines have been set at this point. According to Natural Resources Canada, 52% of Canadian copper exports are shipped to America, valued at around $9.3 billion annually. The rock group the Doobie Brothers had a famous hit song called "Taking It to the Streets." Well, the Streets Alive mission in Lethbridge is using that as the title for its program, providing nourishment to people living on the street. The group's Chief Operations Officer, Cameron Kissick, says 2 or 3 people work Monday through Friday to serve hundreds of people.
We've been at it for 1 week now. They go around, they provide services with the people, but they also pray with the people and minister to the people, and that's an important part of what we do and what separates us from the other outreach teams. So here we have basic needs supplies, so we do have water and juice and things like that. We also carry some hygiene stuff, some clean underwear and socks, things like that. And then from there we move on to just providing referrals for housing, trying to get the supports that they need to get them out of the tents and into somewhere they need to be. And then, of course, we're ministering the God's love to these people at the same time. We do bring the Word of God to the street. So we hope that with the combination of those 3 things, we will make that impact. If anybody wants to come and participate as a volunteer, they can come down to streets. If we could have discussions around coming through and creating some teams that want to go in and help.
Kissick says the beauty of this program is that it can be adjusted based on the needs of the community. A new poll by Research Co. is bad news for the federal NDP. It suggests few Canadians are familiar with the possible NDP leadership contenders. To hopefully change the polling numbers, the NDP has begun a review and renewal process. We get more from David Baxter.
So the polling firm Research Co., they have some data looking at a potential NDP leadership field. They took 9 high-profile New Democrats or people who have been putting their name out there as potential contenders for the leadership to replace Jagmeet Singh. The big takeaway, most Canadians don't know who any of these people are. Jenny Kwan had the biggest name recognition, with 47% of people saying they were familiar with who she is. But still, that's not most Canadians. It's 47%. The same goes for other current MPs. When I was talking to the pollster Mario Canseco, he was saying that this means the field is wide open for the NDP leadership. That's his big takeaway from the data he collected. There is some potential, tumult coming from the NDP as well. Over the weekend, a group called Reclaim NDP launched. Basically, what this group is doing is saying that the Central Party really mismanaged the campaign, and they're encouraging people to divert their donations away from the Central Party and put that more into the local electoral district association. The NDP has announced that Emily Taman, she's a former NDP candidate here in Ottawa, running in Vanier and Ottawa Centre in the past, and she's also a human rights lawyer. She's going to run the party's review and renewal process. So as we all saw, things did not go well for the NDP this go around. They lost official party status, winning only 7 of the formerly 25 seats they held at dissolution. So really, the NDP is just out in the political wilderness right now. And this review and renewal process is meant to try to find a way to guide them back into at least having official party status once again. A deadline for all of that is September 19th. So I imagine we'll be seeing a report coming later in the fall, maybe early winter, but something by year's end for sure.
At this point, the NDP has not yet determined a date for the leadership vote. Hope of finding survivors from the flash flooding in Texas has dimmed. The death toll has surpassed 100, and crews are keeping up the search for people missing in the aftermath of the weekend floods. More than 80 of those killed last Friday were in Kerr County after a wall of water slammed into camps and homes along the edge of the Guadalupe River before daybreak. Floodwaters pulled people out of their cabins, tents, trailers. Some survivors had been found clinging to trees. Fellow Texans are coming from all over the state now to help clean up the damage.
Services revolves around my life, in uniform, out of uniform, and so I get out here and do what I can. If we can bring some sort of closure by finding their loved ones, of course, that's first and foremost. Helping rebuild people's lives, helping rebuild the community, always in the forefront of our minds also, because without that strong base, that foundation of friends and family and faith, that's what draws us to help. My family's been coming to Hunt to go camp with our children for the last 15 years. We've known some people who have perished in the flood. We have friends within the camp community who still can't find their daughters. And so, of course, without questions, if you get here, you show up and you do whatever you can.
No one wants anybody to go through that type of traumatic experience. And so the thought, it brought me to tears many times just thinking about, as a father, them being, they're helpless.
I'm an 8th generation Texan, and this is our home, and it's, I always look at it, if I was in these people's positions, how would I feel and what would I want? But a lot of times in these situations, you get this strong effort right up front. 6 months down the road, you find the item of your loved one that you lost, and it's like those are the tough times that it's like it doesn't just end after we clean all this up, because a lot of this stuff sticks around inside you,
At least 27 campers and counselors have died at the century-old private all-girls Christian camp called Camp Mystic in Hunt, Texas. In sports, Medicine Hat Tigers star Gavin McKenna has announced he will play hockey for Penn State University in the 2025-26 season. As of August 1st, for the first time ever, junior players from the Canadian Hockey League can sign with NCAA teams. McKenna posted 129 points in 56 games last season, as well as 38 points in 16 WHL playoff games en route to a Western Hockey League championship. He has been labeled as a generational talent and is the expected first overall pick for the 2026 NHL draft. According to Barstool Sports, McKenna was given an offer of $700,000 from Penn State. As the war in Gaza drags on, Canada continues to warn that Israel may be violating international humanitarian law and has asked for probes into incidents such as the airstrike on World Central Kitchen workers that killed a Canadian man. But Israel's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sharon Haskell, who was born in Toronto, says Israel is fighting an existential war on 6 different fronts against terror groups supported by Iran, adding her government won't submit to international investigations of the war that it feels are meant to undermine the state's legitimacy. Haskell recounts moving her children into a bomb shelter as Iran retaliated from Israeli airstrikes last month.
My eldest one is 4 years old and my twins are 2.5 years old. And I think the most difficult point was at night, taking them quickly to the shelter, trying to make some noises so they don't hear the loud explosion. So they don't fear. And how do you explain that to babies? Seeing them starting to fear every time they hear the alarm, knowing the missiles and the rockets are coming, and the loud explosions, to the point where we started sleeping in this tiny little shelter. But with all that difficulty and that fear, the only thing that went through our minds as Israelis is that right now we are securing their future and protect them from literally a nuclear holocaust.
Haskell says after being spat on and called a dirty Jew as a 7-year-old and later serving in the Israeli military, she has grown up to realize how important Israel is as a shelter for the Jewish people. Here at home, the latest Alberta crop report has revealed the condition of many of the crops grown in Alberta, as well as soil moisture conditions. As yields begin to set for the season, the joint report from the province and the Agriculture Financial Services Corporation show a 60% average of good to excellent crop conditions province-wide, which varies in different regions. The Peace region is going through a poor season with only 22% of crops being rated good to excellent condition. However, the remaining regions are keeping pace with their 5 to 10-year averages. Additionally, the South and Peace regions each report 20% poor soil moisture, as remaining regions report fair to excellent conditions. The AFSC has said that insurance claims are up after a dry spring, but there is still optimism that July can bring enough precipitation to manage.
Huge MDI payouts. That's our pasture insurance product in Cypress County. Very dry in May, pretty dry conditions. And in that month, we paid out $76 million across the province compared to $3 million last year. So May wasn't so great. June was a little better. Starting to try and get into that average range, chasing an average yield in a lot of areas, but still kind of bad in some, kind of on the edges. The southern part of the region, Taber, Cardston, 40 Mile, and Cypress still haven't had a huge amount of rain. So we're chasing a little bit of rain here coming into July. Wheat and some of the cereals, even Durham, their yields kind of set by now. They're booting, so they, forming that head, and by now they've kind of have the yield potential that they're going to have for the year. Other crops, maybe like canola, is a good example of something that would really vulnerable in July when it's flowering. Peas might be the same way. So we're not expecting the world there, but a little bit of rain would help a lot.
Medicine Hat residents are expressing concerns about the city's proposed transportation master plan. Residents were given a chance to sit in at City Council Monday night to give feedback to city administrators. According to the city, the plan is meant to create a safe and equitable environment for all users and modes of transportation. It would serve as a blueprint as the city grows over time to fit the needs of various types of transportation. The previous plan, introduced in 2013, was very traffic-centered. And planners say with the addition of e-scooters and bikes in recent years, transportation needs have shifted.
Accessibility needs to happen for all residents. So that's where we look at that equity in transportation, where everyone can complete all trips, regardless of their age, ability within the city. So we have road right-of-ways that have been historically vehicle driven and vehicle centered. We now need to look to ways to incorporate those right-of-ways to account for all road users, whether it's a bike, a car, a pedestrian, or someone in a wheelchair.
It also focuses on active transportation and also provides guidelines as to what we need to do to kind of support or promote that active transportation and close the gaps that we have in the transportation network.